Welcome to the True North Leadership and Moral Compass, and I'm Jamie Solveig Chorone. And this episode, we're going to go over the psychology of conflict resolutions and negotiations. So in this episode, I'm going to take you into a look inside different personalities and tactics to how parties try to achieve their goals, from an employer to a pay raise, to lawsuits, to litigation and mediation. The truth is the truth till the end of reckoning. This is William Shakespeare. Before making a decision, go into the cave from the allegory in Plato's Republic and re-examine yourself and your morals to make sure you are doing the right thing on your path. In an interrogation, an attorney may look for the blind spots and try to poke holes in the plaintiff or defendant. Think of Erin Brockovich and watch this to examine how she gains her discovery and the classic old film, Enemy to the People, to re-examine how truths are revealed and the community works for the utilitarianism and the good of the whole. The power of intimidation and moral disengagement. In moral disengagement of the corporate world, Bandura postulates how elimination of consequences to actions when production and products are utilitarian or for the greater good could be harmful to a few and are disengaging to moral actions and behavior. The intimidator's goal is to break you from your moral duties, obligations, and standards. They seek to have you justify or compromise an ethic and value in your life for them and their needs in a negotiation. Intimidators slowly chip away at the brink and the armor in a goal to have the opponent disengage moral self-sanctions from harmful practices and compromise ethical standards. The monkey see, monkey do was a case in Albert Bandura, who created the Bobo doll experiment in a way to see if children would act aggressively. The children did, as they saw the adults do in this experiment conducted in 1962. It is not far from adults' rationalization of behavior in corporations and negotiations. Forms of moral disengagement that Albert Bandura discusses in his last discourse are: 1, moral justification; 2, euphemistic labeling; 3, advantageous comparison; 4, displacement of responsibility; 5, diffusion of responsibility; 6, dehumanization; and 7, moral muteness. Henceforth, convincing in one's mind some others are subhuman, like snakes, cockroaches, weasels, leeches, or rats, will lead mediators to omit information or be dishonest. In the negotiation, a mediator may consider a loss as a collateral damage or pass the responsibility onto a higher position above them. Not voicing an opinion or knowledge is known as moral muteness, and being passive and conforming is what psychologist Harold Tokoshian proposes. The moral muteness and myopia of managers, employees, and in negotiations is looking away and not speaking up. Morals can be intimidating and attractive. When Machiavelli sees the opponent is not a sellout or intimidated, and there is an honorable, stalwart individual that is independent, free of malevolent intent and Schadenfreude influence, they try harder with the dark triad non-pathological personality types, which are Machiavelli, sub-narcissism, subclinical psychopathy. The Machiavelli power player looks for ethical blind spots and seeks to create ethical fading in order to gain their purposes in negotiation and poke holes in the stories of opponents. They could start a defense and an attack spiral intentionally so the opponent loses face and emotion. This can start rounds of incrimination and exasperation that the opponent's strength in the argument in order to make them lose focus and breaking them to a bottom line faster. Let's go over cluster B personality disorders and intimidation tactics. Borderline, paranoid, narcissistic, antisocial, histrionic personality disorders. Personalities have been a study of negotiation for decades in social psychological studies and behavioral decision making. Studies are revisiting this in how players define and create negotiations, which form different understandings. In this theoretical framework, the negotiation is to reconcile incompatible differences. Differences in personality and behavior can lead to different outcomes. The cognitions that were examined were win, lose, face savings, and trust. So in this diagram of didactic negotiation, we look at the narcissists, what their goal is face-saving competitiveness and profit satisfaction. The histrionic, their profit satisfaction, face-saving, and competitive behavior. The antisocial is agreeableness. It's a win-lose trust, collaborative yielding behavior. In paranoid conscientiousness, they make you question everything with conspiracies. Borderline openness, it's a win-lose, satisfaction, and collaborative competitiveness. Now, what are these personality disorders? We'll just break them down so you know what you're dealing with in negotiations. Narcissistic and intimidation. The super megalomaniac is always right and has a superior complex and using intelligence or power to belittle the opponent. The tactic is that they will make themselves smarter than, better than, more successful than, and their personality value is worth more than anyone else in the room. Borderline personality disorder and intimidation. This form of intimidation is a yo-yo effect to go back and forth with affection, attention, and to cause the opponent to get to the bottom line faster or give up on the negotiation. Histrionic and intimidation, telling exaggerated stories and deflecting the attention onto the opponent to make them out to be the enemy. Telling negative stories of the opponent to deflect their problems and blame problems onto the opponent. Paranoia disorder and intimidation. They will fill your mind with conspiracy theories in order to make decisions based out of fear. Tactics could be harassment on the phone or social media, following you to places that you frequently go. Antisocial personality and intimidation. The tactic of the intimidator is to get you alone and where they want you to enforce their judgments upon you. They are cowards and will run away from real authority. Silence is golden. Self-regulation and self-reflection lead to two theoretical perspectives that are tested. One, an internal reflection perspective, whereby silence is golden, leads to deliberative mindset, which in turn prompts value creation. And the tactic could be that they want to silence you. Two, a social perception perspective, whereby silence leads to intimidation and value claiming. There's a discursive movement going back and forth like a dance. This discursiveness is deflecting negative self and personal wrong as a way to get attention on a downward spiral in a negotiation and off one's objectives through this distractive strategy. Discursive dialogue or bouncing from one subject to the other is a way to form a spiral attack where the mediator has to get back to the main subject. This tactic of discursive negotiation turns tables on the other to blame and negative attention onto the other's actions in a dance. He did this or she did that as a way to rationalize one's behavior and lessen to receive greater benefits and get cooperations of parties. So, for instance, an example of discursive dialogue was research based in Finland from the management by fear and employees and termination of employment. The layoffs and termination under the act of cooperation within undertaking during the recession in the world markets. The corporate downsizing is known as dismissal laws. The framework of the study was 1, management by fear. 2, the contextual framework of the Finnish cooperation negotiation system. The ways the cooperation was deflected was by the staying task-oriented with despotic, insincere, exploitative leadership. The headmaster, accousting, deflecting, facial impressions. Social psychology suggests that silent physiology and intimidation tactics are with physiognomies, facial expressions, being well-groomed, having impeccable taste, neutral and intense facial impressions, and confident body language can generate fear and concession of information. The confident, quiet, intense, and detached is a powerful intimidation factor. Sometimes this includes rude, horrid faces, judgmental looks, incriminating faces, with staring down, turning up the lid, and getting angry faces to stimulate fear in the amygdala, which in turn stimulates the fight or flight and freeze. The unwavering eye contact, intense stare, and folded arms are the most intimidating tactics known as the classic headmaster. Research shows that FWHR are considered untrustworthy and aggressive. Faces that are tilted upward or downward are perceived as more intimidating. Tilting one's face increases one's facial width to height ratio. Individuals spontaneously increase their FWHR to appear intimidating. Accousting or walking on a certain side of a person for attention is also a form of intimidation. During negotiations, they can accoust and get to the bottom line sooner. Intimidation tricks. Common intimidation tricks are the threat of loss of your job and respect in the community. Refusing to get along with leaders and saying they are nuts, psycho, insane, tree huggers, or lunars. The intimidators can try to make the leader look like they're nuts to reveal weaknesses, lose the trust of the group, and isolate them. Isolation from the group to get opinion makers and community officials designed to keep you busy defending yourself or to fight amongst yourselves, to lose focus of anything that is productive. Other petty physiological intimidation tricks are turning up heat in negotiation meetings and pounding the table to stimulate the fight or flight response and get opponents to end the negotiation early and get to the bottom line. Disabling the human mind with fear in the amygdala that initials the fight, flight, or freeze in a person slowly emotionally disables the person. Among control and intimidation tactics are time dominance and the home court. Whoever files the complaint first will get their court in their home, or lawyers and defense drawing out court dates with continuances and meager excuses. Simple furniture setup in a room can be a control tactic. Someone calling your name is a form of a power play. Strength in numbers by having many people there to support them in their cause and challenge in proceedings can be indirect harassment. Threatening to walk out and losing patience in another way to get someone to conform. Critical remarks can exasperate and lambaste the opponent. The aggressor makes you feel like you are not good enough and there is something wrong with you. Focusing on the negative attributes of the opponent. Threatening the consequences and giving multiple demands and direct to control you is another petty intimidation. This is a common bullying and military tactic. A sales tactic is to give you little to no time to decide, so you will decide quickly. Beauty, power, higher up on the echelon level, intelligence, experience, knowledge, and the net worth of a person can also be intimidating factors. The milligram experiment is based on the control tactics of authority and posing, intimidation on a person. Now we cross the lines of ethical blind spots, and baited ethics. Identify reasons of people's fear of intimidation and face the fear. Discuss the worst case scenario with team members in intimidation tactics. Now let's go over group intimidation. The intimidator can use a tactic of dividing and conquering, and this is covertly organizing a counter group to polarize the community or opponent to weaken your group to respond to lies and rumors. This is a tactic that forms in schisms between allies, friends, co-workers, and family. This can lead to defining and labeling, calling members of a group radical, obstructionist, elitist, or other words rather than affect labeling and describing the emotion they are feeling. The divide and conquer is when the negotiator makes an offer that you cannot refuse to make your team look radical or extreme. Larger companies in negotiations can intimidate smaller fish with human resource departments, chief financial officers, and expensive law firms. This is a tribal form of tactics and group bombardment and lambasting with intimidation of intelligence, money, and power. An example of power and strength are that All Black Maori rugby team from New Zealand that does a war tribal dance before each game as a war way to intimidate their opposition. This is an act to look like a more dangerous species called the basis and mimicry. Many species do this, such as other groups that may intimidate our gangs with the posturing, walk, and threats of violence. In medical practices, a way of pay grade is to have peers evaluate each other, and then they are paid based on what their performances is ranked by their peers. In this group intimidation, they each, instead of having the boss deny a promotion in negotiation, there is fear of a poor performance and judgment because they're going to be judged by their peers and then paid based on their performance from their peers. Individuals fear to speak out against the majority of the group and fall to moral muteness. This saves money on the corporation budget. As my client's dental practice, they did not have the budget and were not willing to pay for promotion and began peer evaluation on performance in order to negotiate raises. Negotiations and counter-offensive. Ken Cloak proposes a circular definition of the enemy is 1, assume injurious intent, 2, distrust every idea or statement is wrong, 3, externalization of guilt, 4, attribution of evil, 5, zero-sum expectation. Be counteroffensive and not on the defense, because that is what the intimidator wants you to do. Reassert what you stand for and what it's worth fighting for. In response to knowing your enemy, affect labeling is where the negotiator or mediator can get the opponent to put feelings into words and come back to the neocortex from their untamed emotions. As in the Doug Noyle prison study, where he trained prisoners to be peacemakers and mediators rather than aggressors, like in the Bobo doll experiment. This experiment taught prisoners affect labeling and emotional invalidation where there was abuse, and they denied themselves an emotional experience. In negotiations, the opponent can recognize the emotions and tactics of the defense in order not to lose face in emotions, to henceforth be more successful in their negotiations. Self-regulation is by counting to 10 and counting your toes, other ways of self-regulating in response. And we're going to go over that more so in the part 2 of the psychology of conflict. Now, in response to the intimidation, like jiu-jitsu or tai chi, with a smooth response back, immediately following an attack with the opponent's momentum and power behind you. In The Art of War by Li Zhi, if you weaken your opponent's resolve and force them to concede with their nation intact, then your victory is more successful. So I leave that with you as you try to make a negotiation with your business, employees, your boss, or if you've had partners that you have shared interest of a property or business deal in. I hope this was helpful for you. And stay strong and be brave and always lead from your higher consciousness in these negotiations. And the truth will always prevail. I hope you had a great session here.